Hi, and welcome to Real Trail Talk. I am Donovan D'Souza from The Long Ways Better.
And I'm Mark Pybus from The Life of Pi. Welcome to episode 90 and part 2 of our South Coast Track Bonanza. We're going to be talking about days 5 to 7 and then our general thoughts of the track. So I guess we'll kick off straight away. Welcome again, Bronwyn.
Hello.
And Osmeridian Beach to Granite Beach. So this kind of was a day full of like some of the most beautiful coastal scenery, I think, of the whole trail.
Mm-hmm.
And a day of like perfect weather and perfect scenery.
And
also a really
short.
personal jinx.
Yes.
Yes. Short and relatively very easy as well.
Yeah.
A nice relaxing day.
I think it was about 9 or 10 Ks from Osmeridian Beach to Granite Beach. So we weren't up super early. But
we slept in.
Yeah, we slept in, but we still wanted to kind of enjoy Granite Beach. I think it was a good decision to try and get there fairly early.
Yeah.
So the start of the day was filling up water and packing up and then doing the side trail back up to the main track.
Yeah, and we talking about filling up, we went to the part of the trail where you're supposed to fill up.
Oh, yeah.
And it was awful. It was
like
really muddy.
Barely a trickle. I was
Yeah.
like, thank God we didn't do that after a full day.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's Tyler's Creek where it crosses up on the main track, which is kind of just the start of the day, which is really open plains. There's a few rocky sections, but mostly like mud and not a whole lot of boardwalk. Kind of what you'd expect from the South Coast Track, I think.
Yeah, I remember thinking one of the annoying things here was that because of erosion, the trail had become this narrow trench and you were kind of walking like 1 foot in front of the other. And that kind of sucked a bit because it was that, and then you'd have to like climb up the sides in some bits. So it was not the easiest walking, but thankfully it wasn't very long that we had to experience
Yeah, in
this.
parts it was like a 1 leg width trench.
Yeah, and we kept passing those like groups. I think some of them
Yeah.
were like the paid groups
Yeah.
that were tour guides, which I found fascinating that people would pay to have a guided tour where you still had to carry everything. You weren't probably getting meals cooked for you. You still probably had to sleep in your own tent and put it up and everything.
Well, we don't know for sure. We haven't been on one of those tours.
But it's 7 days. The main guides aren't going to be carrying everything.
Well, you'd
I would
hope
have
not.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird one because it's like you're not getting, the value add of doing that on the Overland or the Three Capes is that you get a private hut, you probably get your own bed,
Meals, showers,
wine.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, what's the value add? I guess is that you're guided.
But again, like it's not a hard track to follow. Like
Yeah.
I think there was
No.
like maybe 2 spots where we were like had to check the map or see where to go, but it's really easy.
Yeah, it's
like,
navigationally very easy.
yeah.
But yeah, being guided isn't going to help you if you're struggling with the terrain, is it?
No.
Other than someone to perk you up and give you encouragement.
But there
Yeah.
might be more to it than we realise because we haven't done one of those tours.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'd be very knowledgeable about the
Yeah.
area and everything else, but again, like it'd probably be a fair bit of money. Or unless like you just show up and they say have all your gear at this point at this time, you don't have to worry.
Yeah. There's probably a bit of that where I think if you're someone who doesn't do this a lot and this is like a one-off thing and they give you your backpack with all the stuff you need and you have to put no effort into logistics, then maybe that's the value add for some
Yeah.
people.
So I had that you for that.
Yeah, true.
But then you enter like the forest again, which is like the start of what makes this day really enjoyable. Like there's some nice-ish forest to start, but then you hit that section up on top of the ridge and it's like pristine old growth, like things that in WA I thought I'd never see.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was very similar to the Tingle Forest around Walpole.
It's very Walpole Wilderness if Walpole Wilderness was like actually a wilderness and never burnt.
Yeah, that's the thing is like it felt like no one had touched this at all.
Well, the Tingle Forest, for me, feels like that. It doesn't get burnt much, and I don't know.
This year it is.
But yes, this section of forest on the South Coast Track was really beautiful, and I think we all loved it.
Yeah, it
There
really.
was, like, lots of ferns, and there was a few big, massive trees, including one that Donovan stood in
Oh, you
in the
stood in
hollow
as
of.
well, yeah.
Oh, no, we all stood in it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it definitely felt like the Walpole Wilderness
Yeah.
and Valley of the Giants sort of area.
Had
so,
that really magical ancient forest feeling to it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just massive, like, thick boy trees everywhere, which
Yeah.
is kind of odd, like, because we were so close to the coast and you're only up on this, like, 100-meter high ridge. The fact that this exists just, like, boggled my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's because in WA the soils are a bit granitic close to the coast, so you never get forest growing right to the ocean. Whereas over there, because it's that muddy kind of soil, it can support forests like fairly close. But yeah, I know what you mean, because I have that mental sort of thing of like, how is there a tree so close to the water?
Yeah.
But it was quite similar, I thought, to the Wilson's Promontory.
Yeah, it's very similar to
With
Wilson's
the big trees
Prom.
growing.
But even then, like when I did Wilson's Prom, my immediate thing is, oh, there's trees growing to the ocean. That's bizarre, because as a West Australian, I always think of like sandy soil and heath along the coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's beautiful walking through there, kind of up and down a little bit. And then we descended down to a creek where we saw Tim, the Queenslander, who was doing it solo. Had a bit of a chat, and then up another little hill before a steep descent down towards Surprise Bay, which was a surprise. Just at how like beautifully stunning it was.
Yeah, I remember, I think you said it was like Fitzgerald River on like, you know, like times a million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just that initial drop down to the beach, you've got that like diagonal rock going into the sand, and then there's another little rock like coming out. It's just one of those moments where you're just like, wow, like this is why we do
quite spectacular jagged rocks, and then you got to walk between them. And it was also, that was like quite a warm, I wouldn't say hot, but quite a warm day, sunny, and I just thought, I've got to go for a swim.
Yeah, I remember you were like, are we going to go for a swim? Are we going to go for a swim? And I was filming Mark, and I was doing like the Michael Bay, like panning around is a circle thing, and I panned around Mark, and then in the background you can see, well, what's happening over here? And Bonnie is like stripping off and then running into the ocean.
I was surprised it took until day 5 to have like full Bonnie swim experience.
Yeah.
I would have gone swimming on the first day, but there were all those blue bottles, put me off.
Yeah. But it was just, that was really funny watching, like, because I was not filming that at all, and then that's you in the background running into the ocean.
Because there was that other group of 3 that had stopped there to go for a bit of a swim and a poke around the beach and the rocks as well. Like, it just seemed like a very relaxed day where we didn't have far to go. We had all the time in the world, and the scenery was like stunning all throughout.
And I also thought the other end of Surprise Bay was really beautiful, like where the creek was meandering across the beach to the water, and then there were more of those jagged rocks.
Yeah. The surprise rivulet.
Yes.
Oh yes, that's it.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that was really nice.
And then there was a very steep climb to the campsite, like a short but steep climb where I think they'd put a rope in to help you.
Yep.
Which I found necessary because I was still in my thongs.
Ah.
Actually, no, sorry, I was barefoot, and I was like, had the camera, and I was trying to like pull myself up, and like a bit like my dog when it comes to like jagged surfaces, and I'm a bit like precious because my feet are like super soft.
Yeah.
So I think at one moment I like slipped a little bit. I was like, don't fall down that steep rocky bit. But yeah, the views looking back were amazing. We got beautiful sunny skies with lots of cloud.
Yeah, and the rivulet wasn't deep either, which apparently it can be.
Yeah.
So again, another example of us being just very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the map shows it as like a wide section of water before the landmass.
Yep.
So yeah, I think just we got really lucky again.
Yeah.
And there's the campsite on up the hill a little bit, maybe like 100 meters, where we had what was like morning tea / lunch.
Yep.
That
would have been a nice campsite, but I did think it would be, well, I suppose it's a bit similar at Granite Beach, but you've got to kind of walk down that big steep climb to get any water at that camp.
Yeah, that would be a bit annoying.
Bit annoying, but otherwise a beautiful spot to stay, which we didn't do. We kept going. But.
Yeah, but 2 people that did were the 2 guys that we talked to at Melaleuca, who had come off the Port Davey track. They'd like doubled on a one day and like caught up to us, but they were staying there for the night, and it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was like, why not just continue on to the much better campsite?
Yeah.
You've got the day to do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it seemed like a nice spot, and they probably enjoyed themselves.
Yeah, they were probably the only people that we saw semi-regularly on a very different itinerary. Like, everyone else, I think, was, like, following the Chapman 7 days. And because we didn't have any, like, inclement weather, no one, like, had... You know, sometimes they say, oh, allow an extra day if something like that goes wrong. But everyone basically just stuck to that itinerary.
Yeah. Other than that big group of young people who seemed to spend an extra day at Deadman's Bay.
Yeah.
And that couple that we saw at the end, that we also camped with at Little Deadman's Bay,
Yeah.
they like doubled on one day and then stayed at Cockle Creek at the end instead of like taking their time.
Yep.
There. Anyway, moving on. So from Surprise Bay Rivulet, it's kind of like a bit of up and down. It's steep-ish.
Yeah.
There's that one spot where a few people got lost, where they didn't go up a rock.
That's right.
They continued on into the forest.
Yeah.
But I remember the views looking back over Surprise Bay being really special here. Like very limited, but like what you'd expect from the South Coast track.
Yeah. I remember on some of the climbing here getting a bit irritated.
You were.
I was like, I don't really like this. Because it was
a bit steep, actually.
Yeah, it was like quite steep, but you know, the steep bits didn't really have that much reward for it. And it just felt a bit never-ending because in reality it was only like 2Ks, but it was again the Chapman, you know, not showing you every climb.
Yeah.
So you're like, I've done this climb. I feel like based on that chart we should be done, but no.
Yeah. But the reward was you come back down the hill and onto Granite Beach, which is like you just know it's the final stretch of the day, and you've got a waterfall at the end to look forward to in the camp. But the beach walking, once you get off the sand and go onto the granite, like pebbles and rocks, it's not easy.
No.
Yeah.
And that actually took me a long time. I think I had my mild paranoia again where I thought, I really don't want to break my ankle. So I was like being very careful on those rocks. Not that it's like really difficult, but I just thought one wrong move and you could easily break an ankle.
Well, you need to think about every step because,
and some of them were wobbly too.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you step on a wobbly one, you've got to have an escape plan to move on and get another step in. And
and that's when we met. I think the only time we met some fellow Western Australians. Going the other way.
Yeah, because they stopped. It's like, oh, you've got a lot of camera equipment. Are you filming this? And then I said, oh, you know, it's going to be up on The Long Way's Better. And they said, The Long Way's Better? I know that. And they said, oh, you have that podcast.
Yeah, with the other guy. It's
like,
here's the other
guy. So that was kind of funny. I think that what clued them on was the Bibbleman. We all have the Bibbleman.
Yeah.
Do you have that on yours?
No, I don't have any patches on my backpack.
I do and you do. And I think they saw that and was like, oh, Bibbleman people.
Yeah. Fellow Perthians / sand gropers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. And then, I think Granite Beach just went on for way longer than I expected, mainly because it was slow going on the pebbles. But then once you get towards the end and you can see the waterfall, it's this is fantastic.
And I think we lucked out with the weather again because it was a beautiful, warm, sunny, blue sky day. So really felt like a shower under the waterfall. Whereas if it had been freezing cold and windy, I still would have had a shower under the waterfall just because it's like to keep clean. But it would have been so cold. But yeah, it was nice for us.
Yeah.
Although first things first, we had to climb up another little cliff and then go up a hill to get to the campsite.
And looking at like photos and videos, there's that rope that goes from above the waterfall, and it looks like you have to kind of pull yourself off the side of the cliff,
which you don't have to do.
Yeah. It's still like not sketchy, but it's steepish, and you need to think about your steps.
Yeah, it's not too bad. You wouldn't want to fall there.
Yeah. When Alyssa saw that, she was like, "Really? That's the way up to camp?" Yeah.
So you cross the creek that the waterfall flows into the ocean in, and it's actually a fair climb. It's like 30 or 40 meters vertically to get to the campsite.
But unlike Surprise Bay, you don't have to climb down a cliff to collect your water. You've got to walk down to the creek, but you're at the top of the waterfall, so it's not too difficult.
But at one point I was like, half going to check on the map to see if we'd like missed a turn off or whether the campsite was further along the creek instead, because I was like, we haven't reached it yet and we've gone a fair way off the beach. But yeah, it's just a bit further than you expect.
And that creek at the top of the waterfall, that's where there was a quoll.
There was the camp quoll, which is a bit infamous of stealing people's food.
Yeah.
Yeah, not too bad. It's just one of those things where you just need to be aware of hanging food up every night. But the campsite, again, like it's spaced out tent sites in the thickets there. It's quite a nice spot.
It was a pleasant spot, but unlike some of the others, it didn't have the views of being right on the beach. But it was a nice spot and really good. Like we went down, we put up our tents, and then I went down and had a shower in the waterfall, which was great. It's a very sort of like heavy waterfall. So when you're standing under it, it's like really forceful.
And
very,
cold.
Very good for a wash. Yeah, freezing cold.
And yet that was like apparently a mild day at the waterfall, because I've seen like photos after torrential downpour, and it's like just a deluge coming. Like
if it was like that, it would just squash you. I reckon.
Yeah, you'd probably just be like just pummeled if you went underneath.
Yeah, because I remember I went down on my own to have a shower and a bit of a sunbake. And I'd finished, and then I saw you wandering down. You're like, "Do you mind if you do that again?" I was like, "It's so cold."
That's like the theme of our hike was stop there, go back. We want to film it.
Do it again. Like I haven't seen the footage that you do. It must look weird because my hair's already wet and I'm already like drenched, and then I'm like wandering in. So it was like, oh, doing this for the first time.
I think people, they suspend their disbelief with these things. Yeah, like this. I realized later on that when Bonnie signs off at the end, that you can see her sticks already in the shot. And it's like, yeah, but no one will notice that.
But yeah, I'm glad that we like had so much time at Granite Beach on that day as well.
We had a real relax. Like that's when we got to know the people who were on the same itinerary as us. Which, come to think of it, that's something that surprised me about the South Coast Track. I was expecting not to see many people, but we saw a fair few. Might have been because we were going in the Christmas holidays, like right after Christmas.
I think there were a few flights cancelled a few days before us, so like there was
bit
more
of a backlog
planes.
of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, same with you. I was like expecting to cross maybe like 2 or 3 groups and have the campsites to ourselves, but it was busy. Yeah. Which has actually made it good fun at the end, because you could like, see everyone at camp, but then walk on your own during the day.
Yeah, the New Zealanders, they had like a really nice place in the middle of the campsite, which we kind of all sort of gathered around, and I was amazed that they brought like real food.
Yeah.
They had like sausages.
Wasn't like... It was Warwick's pack was like 20 something kilos because he just carried all this food.
Yeah, he's like, he weighed it and it came in at like 20 kilos, and he's like, I don't think that's right.
Yeah. I mean, Tim was good as like a solo hiker who was already quite social, in like he was the conduit for people to talk and
definitely
be a bit more social, which I think we probably wouldn't have done without him. We would have said hello and maybe a few conversations.
Just stuck to our little group.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was quite cool. I found the more the trip went on, the less I was worried about staying up for sunset or like I was quite happy to go to bed at like 8:39 towards the end.
Yeah.
Yep.
We did go back down to the waterfall to just before sunset though.
We
got some beautiful views, although the wind had come up, so it changed the ocean a lot, like the cloudy and windy, so it looked very different to when we first got there.
Yeah, I remember there being like a purplish hue to the sunset, but it wasn't as
we didn't really see a spectacular sunset. It was just
wasn't as good as what I thought it would be.
It could potentially have been good.
So day 6 was kind of, it's the day that you, Donovan, described as like the one you don't expect to be hard, but is.
Yeah, a lot of people said that, they expected the Ironbounds to be hard, and then this came up and they were like, whoa, where did this come from? But I think because we were expecting it, maybe it didn't feel as bad.
I was the opposite. I think I really struggled on the Ironbounds day, and then day 6 I enjoyed it for the most part. It was very muddy and kind of bit of a challenge in that respect, especially.
Mm.
We'll save the story for for later in the.
Yep.
But yeah, it was one of those days where like if you knew it was coming, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it just starts off with that 400-meter climb.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really notice that climb that much.
Yeah.
I think I was expecting. Also, after I struggled on the Ironbound day, I thought, I'm going to find day 6 really hard. But yeah, it was a lot more pleasant, I thought.
Yeah.
At the start of that climb, again, we had the humidity, which probably makes it a bit more of a drudge. But it seemed to go by pretty quickly.
Oh, the measure I had was that I felt, the huffing and puffing feeling going up the Ironbounds, whereas I was like, this doesn't feel like anything. This just feels like walking, and I didn't feel
Yeah.
tired going up.
Yeah,
I
it was
felt like-
steep in parts, though.
Yeah, it was
But
steep
not
and
too
like
bad.
warm because of the humidity to
Yeah.
start with. But
Mm.
yeah, it was kind of opened up a little bit towards the middle. And I got super frustrated because my camera fogged up
Fogged.
and
Oh,
I
yeah, I
couldn't
remember that.
solve it. And then I just had this idea of like, I'll just press my hand against the lens.
Mm.
Within 5 minutes, it like cleared up. I was like, thank
Yeah.
God, because I would have been so grumpy with a foggy lens the whole day.
Yeah.
I think the thing here is the reason why it was fogging up is because it rained overnight, and it was the only time of the whole trip.
Oh, that's
except
right, yeah.
we had a little bit of drizzle at Little Deadman.
No, there was a few downpours that night.
No, that's what I'm saying. That night.
Oh, yeah.
So Little Deadman, we had a little bit of drizzle on that night, but then at Granite Beach campsite, we had the proper it wasn't
I saw there
heavy.
was a few downpours at Little Deadman's as well. Like I woke up a couple
Yeah,
of times.
I'm saying it did, but our tents were actually dry by the morning at Little Deadman's, whereas mine was.
Mine wasn't.
Whereas at Granite Beach campsite, like everyone's tents were wet, and like I know you had some clothes out that were drenched.
Yeah. And I had my socks and clothes, and I made a terrible mistake. I forgot to pack my spare socks, which I really regretted.
Can we just run down Bronwyn's logistics issues for this trip? Your pillow issue at the start.
Oh yes, I thought I forgot my pillow, and then I had this like quick race around going to Paddy Palin in Hobart to get a replacement pillow, and then I realised on the second last day of South Coast Track that I had 2 pillows in my backpack.
Yep.
And I also, I forgot my spare socks, which on a normal hike, that's like, it doesn't really matter, but on this hike, you really don't want to forget your spare socks. But I managed. I just had to like wash my socks, and they were disgusting, but oh well. I survived.
Had more pillows and socks. Or pairs of socks. But yeah, so as a result of the downpours, today was a lot muddier and wetter than what we'd experienced, which to get through to day 6.
We were so lucky.
Yeah, very lucky. I remember watching Caro's South Coast Track video after we'd finished, and she had a perfect day 1, and she's like, now don't be fooled, it's not going to be like this for the whole time. And I was like that awkward like looking meme, but you're like, that's what we got.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you kind of get to the top of the hill, and it's just the first of many hills today.
Yeah.
There's like, I think there's 7 peaks
Yep.
that get off, but like this is the bulk of the climbing.
I think that if I remember correctly, that each hill got progressively smaller as the day went on. So it was like,
I think the last couple I
maybe
thought
I'm
were
wrong.
going to be
Yeah.
smaller, but they felt
Yeah, they seem to
longer.
go on a while. Yeah.
But then we entered the muddy bit. We kind of half got reception at one point at the top of the
that's
hill.
Right,
Yeah.
because we stopped there for ages. We were like
Yeah.
frantically trying to send messages, but
Yeah.
couldn't quite get it to work.
And then mud.
Yeah.
And there was one, like a lot of the time the mud was quite deep, like say about knee deep, and it was okay. We had, I thought if I didn't have gaiters, I would have regretted my wearing trail runners in that mud. But because I had the gaiters, they were keeping my shoes on, and you just have to just embrace the mud. You're going to get very dirty and slow you down a bit, but it is what it is. Although there was one point when Donovan took a step in a particular patch of mud.
Yeah.
And
I went like beyond knee deep. Like,
you went like you went bottom deep,
Yeah, the bottom of your pack was quite muddy.
yeah.
waist deep, shall we say?
Yes, it was pretty close to that. And it's unfortunate that I don't have that on video because I really would love to have seen, like to prove to people, no, this is seriously deep. The best I have is Mark takes a step, and like he's expecting it to be the same height that he is, and just goes whoop.
Yeah. It was, I think I was just like, all right, I'll just put my foot in to test how deep it is, and then all of a sudden I was knee to thigh deep, like sucked under. I was like, yeah, that's
I had
not fun.
a few steps like that was deeper than I thought.
Yeah.
All part of the type 2 fun, I suppose.
Yeah.
I did notice though that you were more tentative than Mark and I. Like I think there's a few times when Mark like walked straight through, whereas you kind of thought
Would
a bit
stop and
more.
think,
You're like, maybe we'll go this way.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things like you can't tell if it's going to be knee deep, if it's going to be ankle deep. You just kind of have to step and hope.
Yeah.
No, not really. See, that's the other thing. I had my hiking pole, so I was testing some of it, which you didn't have.
that.
Hiking poles, so you were just, it was potluck.
I was the guinea pig up front.
Yeah.
But is that like after kind of like ho-humish like scrub, you enter that really, really nice rainforest.
Yeah, that was lovely.
That was like magical rainforest.
Yeah.
It was very mossy and lichen and really nice. It was a fairy forest, we called
Yes,
it.
very much. And it was, I think, the nicest of all the rainforests that we saw on the whole trip.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now I remember popping out to that like creek where we had a bit of a break and just being like, this is like stunning, because it was like white sand with like the tannic water running through it, and then like green everywhere.
Yeah.
Mushrooms. It was just straight out of a book.
Yep.
Yeah, and then from that creek, so we descended to that, and then we had another short, steep uphill, and then there's like a bit of a campsite up there, the Track Cutters Camp.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't really have facilities, but it's got a nice clearing, so we stopped there for lunch.
Which is kind of like, it's a good way to introduce the story of the South Coast Track, because it is a shipwreck survival route that got cut.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can kind of, if you know that, you can kind of understand where it goes and why it goes there. Like, it doesn't just take you over some random hill because there might be a lookout or a view or it's a challenge. It tries to follow the topography as best it can to minimize the effort.
Yeah.
So yeah, once I knew that, I was like, oh yeah, we're not going to go over that massive hill, are we?
Yeah. It's interesting because like in the book, Chapman describes like the people who cut it, and they're like, oh, someone could do it in 3 days if you like. He's like, wow, you're super optimistic to say.
But that was an interesting thought. While I was walking the track, I was imagining what it would be like to survive a shipwreck and then have to.
Yeah, if you had no shoes.
You had no shoes, or if it was the olden days and you had very not very comfortable clothes as well.
Yeah.
Or like clothes that would get all waterlogged and.
But there's like heaps of stories of people like escaping convict colonies all around Tasmania and just hiking through the wilderness for days on end and just arriving in Hobart.
Yeah.
Like, how did you do that?
Yeah. It's like necessity.
Well, like fresh water is probably not going to be an issue,
True.
but it's more like the terrain and trying to find your way and navigate.
And I guess, it's not necessary that you would be shipwrecked at the
very end.
The very end and have to walk all, like you might, and if you were sort of, at Point Eric, you'd walk to Melaleuca. That would be the sensible thing to do, not to walk all the way to Cockle Creek.
Yeah. And then from Track Cutters, like the bulk of the climbing of the day had been done, and there was like a shortish forest section, bit of a descent, and then we're out onto button grass plains for a little bit, which is a bit of a surprise, being like, oh wow, we're back to this.
Shouldn't be a surprise because we're always getting button grass plains along the.
Yeah.
And actually, I should point out, it's not really button grass a lot of the time. It's sort of a more swampy, scrubby, but not button grass.
I think it is button grass. It just doesn't grow as buttony as like it does in the alpine regions.
Yeah, it looked very different to other button grass I've seen.
Yeah, because like just on iNatures recently, I posted a photo of the button grass flowers on the ironbounds, and there someone posted like, that's button grass. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't really look like what we were walking through a whole lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a little bit different, but yeah, it is.
It might be like just how the conditions are that it doesn't grow in that nice sort of clumpy shape because of.
But something I enjoyed about those plains is we saw a lot of flowers, and actually something I haven't mentioned, like really interesting sundews.
Yes, the forked sundews were fascinating.
Yeah, all along the track. I really enjoyed that, and I'm sure for people who go hiking in Tasmania all the time, that might just be oh yeah, whatever. But it's a different type of sundew to me. So, and it was really hard. I was trying to get photographs of it, and they're all blurry, but I tried.
Yeah, I didn't, even with the DSLR, I didn't get great photos.
Yeah.
I got some, but not too many.
Yeah, and other little like swampy flowers.
The river rose, you had the yellow ones, which I'm getting the name of, tea trees, swamp myrtle. Yeah, just lots of the same that you'd see every day, but it was still kind of cool to spot them.
They're not our usual West Australian ones, so
No.
it's nice.
Yeah, something a bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, there's 2 hills left in the day, and to me they felt like a lot more than they were.
Yeah, I think we were getting towards the end of the day, and also it was just, it's not that they were difficult hills, that they just went for a long time, and I think we were just ready to get to
it was
camp.
Quite sunny as well through the forest
That's
bits
right,
of
it
the
was
hills.
warm, yeah.
But at the top of the biggest one, which I think was about 100 meters, that's when we got reception.
Yeah.
And we could finally talk to people for the first time in 6 days.
Yeah, my dumb phone started beeping as we were descending. I went, whoa! And immediately it's like we just stopped and called
You should
our loved
provide
ones.
some context there, Donovan. Donovan was carrying an old-fashioned style phone. That's what he means by dumb phone.
Yeah. So I have this phone which is waterproof, and the battery life is like ridiculous. Like you can go for 2 weeks without charging, and I bought it specifically for this trip so that going out there we would have at least, no matter what would happen, we'd always have one phone that could get reception.
But I mean, the screen didn't really survive that well, did it?
No, it didn't. Like, it looks. I forgot that these old phones, like, they didn't make them very well. Like, they're just plastic.
Yeah.
But everything else about it is built like a tank.
Whereas I had literally received a new Samsung S22 like the week before we went.
Yeah.
And I'm walking around with that just in my pocket, photographing and filming everything, and you're just quite proud of your dumb phone.
Yeah, I find it funny that this dumb phone, while I bought it for obviously the indestructible kind of qualities, messaging people is terrible because I don't have the muscle memory of how to do the old A is number 2 and yeah. So it took a long time to say I am okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. I filmed you talking to Alyssa. Got to speak to Karis. Bonnie got to speak to her mum and boyfriend, and yeah, it was just a nice moment to kind of end the day. But we still had one more hill to go.
Yeah.
And then we ran into that couple who were asking how far it was to the top of the 400-meter hill. And it was already middle of the afternoon.
Yeah.
That was a bit worrying. But in the moment, it didn't quite click that they were going to be in trouble.
Yeah, we were talking
Yeah.
to them, and they didn't seem to be prepared for all the mud and the how long it was going to take.
Mm.
And it was only after they left that we were like, oh, hang on, it's 3 p.m. They're going to struggle to get to Granite Beach.
And I think they might have doubled back because I remember someone set up a tent after I went to bed.
Yeah, it was quite
right next
late
to
that
me,
I
yeah.
heard some people come through camp, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah. But there's some good views from those hills. You kind of have to go off trail a little bit.
Yeah, although there was on the map and in the guidebook there's supposedly a lookout, which I was looking out for, but we seem to have missed it.
I think there's it's very
It might have
limited.
It might have just been a little ledge that's not an obvious lookout.
Mm.
But then, coming back down that last hill, you're just pretty much on the South Cape rivulet.
Yep.
And there's that one final creek crossing, and then you're in camp.
Yeah, and South Cape rivulet's a really pretty spot. It's a beautiful beach, and the forest growing right down onto the beach. And South Cape rivulet, I think we were a bit concerned that it was going to be deep. We'd heard it could be deep and could be brackish, and it was fine.
It was fine to cross, but not great to fill up your water.
Oh, it was okay.
I found it brackish, and
It was brackish, and it wasn't moving quickly, and people were washing stuff
Yeah,
where
actually,
you
that
should have
was-
been filling up. It's
Yeah.
guys, just go upstream a little bit.
Yeah, that was a bit
Sorry, downstream a
bit
little bit.
iffy.
Yeah.
But I thought the water tasted fine just for one day. It would have been a bit annoying if all the water was like that. But
Yeah, it's not so brackish that you'll get sick, but I could definitely taste some saltiness to it.
Yeah, even with my staminade powder in there, I was just like, this is very salty. But the campsite, I think, was one of the best we stayed at.
It was
that
beautiful.
whole beach to wander at.
Yeah. I mean, we were lucky again because that is another one that can be quite deep, and it was just like, a dawdle for us. to
Yeah,
cross.
like other people who've, like when we were researching, we were hearing, it could be like waist deep and or more. It was just knee deep for us, I think.
Yeah.
Even if you rocked up to there and it was like windy and stormy, you'd have a bit of trouble trying to find like a properly sheltered spot for your tent. And then you'd kind of have to just like stay there for the night. Whereas we could wander around. I sat down on the sand in the sun for a while. It was just very chill.
Yeah.
That was another like more social evening as well, where I think everyone was just really relaxed. And we had some friendly local visitors as well, the paddy melons.
Friendly. They were trying to steal from Donovan's
Oh.
cup.
I thought they were friendly.
Yeah. No, they were friendly. Well,
A bit greedy, perhaps.
yeah. Less, speaking of greedy, the mozzies here.
Oh.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
I swear I've never been bitten that bad, and I am one of those people who has the genetic like predisposition to being bitten, and I'd say for like 2 weeks afterwards I just had like mozzie bites all over my legs, to the point that I didn't want to go to like I normally get like a tune-up massage every month. I didn't go because I thought that they think I had like some disease because I was like that covered in mozzie bites.
Yeah.
But then what I found was tricky about the mozzies is for a long time on the last few days, like the first few days there were no mozzies and then the last few there were, but I didn't feel them that they were biting, so I thought they were fine. And it was only a day or so later I realised I'm covered in bites.
Yeah.
Same for me. I thought I was like so severely burnt on my neck that it was just sunburn. But then after that went away, I was still really itchy because of all the bites. I was like, this is horrible. Like, every hot shower was such a relief trying to get the sting out. But yeah, I was just, didn't notice it at the time. It was, a couple of days later.
Yeah, like when back in Hobart, I was like, wow, my legs are so itchy. And, I'd scratch until I was bleeding because I was just so itchy.
Yeah, beautiful campsite.
Yeah.
And a lot of people at that campsite because it is a spot where you can go overnight and then hike back to Cockle Creek
Yeah.
the next
Also, was
day.
it a weekend? No, it wasn't a weekend. But I imagine if it's a weekend, it could be
It's
even busier.
Thursday, yeah.
Mm.
And then on to the final day. So this was going to be a bit of a doddle of a day. 2 kind of hills in there and then a whole lot of beach walking.
Yeah,
and then
very
flat
small
walking.
hills.
But it was very grey to start with, I remember.
Yeah.
As we crossed that beach and then up that first hill, which I think was the tallest of the 2, maybe.
But really not that tall at all.
Yeah, like 50 or 100
Yeah.
meters. It was just kind of like I don't know. It didn't feel as special.
Yeah.
Mainly because you could sense you were getting closer to civilization.
Yeah. I did feel the beaches were quite special, though.
Yeah, the first 4Ks of the day I thought were very nice. Like the view back to to the campsite from the top of the cliffs were really nice.
Yeah, I thought there were some really beautiful views from between the trees, and maybe more so than on other days. Like something about the South Coast Track is like a lot of the time you can't see the ocean even though it's a coast track. So I did enjoy that about the last day. Lots of coastal glimpses. It was nice.
Yeah. And there's that really cool rock formation. Is it Lion Head
Rock.
or Lion
Rock.
Yeah.
And
With the boat.
The boat that
Yeah.
had been abandoned.
Yeah, we came down onto Lions Rock Beach, and then the track really changes after Lions Rock Beach. It becomes quite civilized.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that coastal bit, with Lion Rock is like super dramatic on the beach.
And on the day we were there was a small shipwreck, which was quite unusual.
Yes.
And I love that bit just before when you leave the beach, there's like that black cliff.
Yeah.
And that to me was like the grand like final statement of the South Coast Track. And then I did not enjoy the 7Ks to the end, I have to say.
It didn't start out too bad. Like walking on that rock was quite cool. And then the first initial bit along the creek line was nice and green and enjoyable. But yeah, the open plains was a bit exposed, a bit warm. and then like you've just got all these day hikers that you're crossing. And
Yeah,
you're
I
like,
found that really strange how built up it felt. Like I was enjoying it because I was feeling quite like a sense of celebration because it was the end of the walk. And just reflecting on the past 7 days. But I could understand why Donovan was not in such a happy mood. And I could understand why. And I felt bad because I was all like, yay, this is great. And Donovan was like, no, this is horrible.
I can't. The thing was, I felt, like, I think, like Mark and I talked about this. We said, if you're going to do this track, you're pretty much, set whether you're going to do it or not before you get to that bit.
Yeah.
And I really just didn't want to be filming anymore. But then I felt like obligation of like, well, this is the last 7Ks. You got to document it, right? And I did notice, I see other people's films and blogs of it, and they have glossed over this section a fair bit. But I was like, no, I want to just do this right. But I didn't really want to be doing it. And then I pissed you off because I was like, Bonnie, can you walk through this? And you're like, get Mark to do it. and then I was like, I was extra pissed off about the situation because I had annoyed you, and I didn't want to annoy you.
I don't think you annoyed me that badly.
But I didn't even want to be doing it, which is the thing that it was like, she's like annoyed that I've asked her to do this again.
I wasn't.
Are you sure? Because the tone that I got was she was just like kind of happy because she had reception. She's like, oh, can you get Mark to do it? Like that kind of way.
No, I didn't take it that way.
Oh, sorry.
But the thing was, and also like from a filming perspective, like I did actually film Mark, but I can't use it because it's just random because it's like lots of Bonnie at the front and then suddenly Mark by himself. So I was like, I can't really use that shot. But yeah, I felt bad, and then also like, but I didn't even really care to be shooting at this stage. So yeah.
I mean, you also had your hips were sore and your feet were sore. And it was just,
they were.
That last like 1.5 to 2 Ks along the rocks, I just felt kind of like dragged on a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we all felt ready to get to the end.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cockle Creek's quite a nice ending.
It
was very built up just because of the time of the year that we visited with summer holidays, like lots and lots of caravanners, full drivers, everything. But
the beach there was really beautiful. It was like lovely, clear turquoise water. Went for a little bit of it, not a proper swim, but just sort of walked out into the water.
And there's that nice building that they've renovated since Google Street View went through last time. Because you were like, what's at the end? And I Googled, I was like, oh, there's like a Tassie Parks shelter there. And in front of that now they've built in a much bigger shelter with like information boards and everything.
Yeah.
And then you've got the finishing sign to take photos out and everything.
Which was good because we had a few hours to wait for our transport. So like we made the time go pretty fast. I think we made some phone calls, went down to the beach, read all the signs. And then we were worried that some of the other hikers were going to be late.
Make it,
But right at the very last moment, I think it was Tim was the last one, and he just showed up like 5 minutes before.
Yeah.
Because after the whole week of us being the last ones into camp.
We were like one of the first.
Yeah. And then it was that, 2-hour transfer back?
2 or 3. It was a long drive.
It was a very long
quite
drive.
Interesting seeing a bit of country Tasmania.
Yeah. But like Mark and I had, we'd had this, we were told that that in the past they stop off somewhere at like a greasy spoon, so we were like, we're done, we're not going to eat lunch at the end. And we were like, I'm so hungry.
And even when we're on there, Tim was just like, we're going to talk to the driver, we're going to do it, and then like it was closed or he wasn't there or something. I was like, I'm so hungry.
Like we basically got dropped off. We were staying at the same place, and there was a sushi shop downstairs. We're like, yes, go in.
Before I've even showered or dropped my stuff off, I'm just going to get sushi.
I went and got a burger, but first I had a very thorough shower before I went out to get a burger.
Yeah, we also had a burger. But
covered in mud.
It's good to be finished. And like I don't know, it didn't feel like the end of a week-long overnight hike. Mainly because like I don't get driven at the end. I usually stay wherever I'm finishing.
Oh, yeah.
There's a bit of a different end to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the South Coast Track. 7 days. What we did it in, it's about 85 k's in total, and just lots and lots of hills and mud and good fun.
Yeah. It's a very, very good experience.
The way I describe it is like, it's what people want to experience when they go to Tasmania, but don't necessarily get to because it's like lots of tourist setups and infrastructure and everything, or you're just not in the area where you're going to get old growth forest or a pristine beach or something like that. Like, it's very much, if you can do it, you're going to be rewarded like significantly for it.
I would describe it as like, to me, it was like an obstacle course, but then with sections of respite from the obstacle course. So the tricky bits were like, there's like always something to climb over or some mud to go through. But then the easy bits, it's all boardwalk. And so it's like la-di-da-di-da, and then very slow climbing, trying not to break an ankle.
I felt like this was a walk that, while very high reward, was very high effort. You know, if I were to compare it to other Tassie walks I've done, like the Overland's much less effort, very high reward, but, you know, the effort level's not as high. Walls is much, much less effort for the reward.
Walls of Jerusalem.
Walls of Jerusalem, yeah, I know. I did this as well with the video. I just say walls and then don't say what it is. But yeah, Walls of Jerusalem and Frenchman's is also hard, but this is even harder than Frenchman's. That's what you thought as well, didn't you, Bonnie?
Yeah, I think so. I think South Coast Track is a bit harder.
I think there's just more of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like days and days of that, whereas, you know... And obviously, you'd say, Mark, this was much harder than 3 Capes.
Oh, significantly harder, yeah. But like, I was surprised at how much better the quality of the trail was, in terms of like, there was boardwalks that had obviously been recently installed into the muddier section, so it wasn't bad in that regard. I was expecting to be wading through a lot more mud.
I was expecting to have a lot more mud, and I think that's partly that we had dry conditions for the first several days, and also I think they seem to have done a lot of track work recently. So it might have been a lot harder a decade ago than it is now. I'm not sure.
I think we really lucked out with the weather we got for the
absolutely.
few days preceding the walk, and then during the walk as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. I like the quote that Tim had, is like, it's a young person's track.
Yeah.
Which with bushwalking, and especially like being in the wilderness, you don't normally associate that with young people. It's usually an old person's kind of hobby.
Oh, not necessarily.
But I'd say definitely in Western Australia, like the Bibbleman skews old.
That is true, yes.
Yeah.
You know, whereas this is definitely skews young.
Yeah. At least the people we met. It was mostly 30s and younger.
Yep.
20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommended if you can plan it out properly and have a few friends to go with. It's a really, really rewarding experience.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I just think the whole thing, like even the fact that you have to fly out, it just adds that novelty to it that you don't get with other hikes. And
yeah, especially if you get good views on the flight as well. It's like really good start to the hike. It makes it feel like such an adventure.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you want to know more, by the time this gets released, my blog post should be out. So if you search South Coast Track and the Life of Pi, hopefully Google will direct you in the right direction. And Donovan, your videos are coming out in July, August?
August, yeah. August will be 4 episodes for the series of the South Coast Track.
Excellent. Having seen a sneak preview, I'm quite excited to see the whole lot.
Awesome. Thank you, Bonnie, for coming in and being part of the adventure and part of this discussion of the trail.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me along on the South Coast Track, because it was a bucket list hike for me that I always thought was a bit hard to organise. So fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode or any other episode of Real Trail Talk, then please rate us on whatever platform you're currently listening to us on. Ratings really help us to reach an audience, especially those who are looking to learn about the outdoors in Western Australia and Australia in general. If you had any questions or suggestions for future episodes, you can email us at realtrailtalk@gmail.com or contact us through our social media channels. Thanks again, and stay tuned for our next episode.